Welcome to the land of my birth, a celebration in song of the life and times of the right excellent Norman Washington Manley, national hero of Jamaica and prominent leader in the national struggle for political independence. Mr. Jimmy Tucker, famous Jamaican singer, a golden tenor, one of Jamaica's most prominent singers of patriotic music, in 1993 released an album of the same name, Land of My Birth, in tribute to N.W. Manley. All our selections this evening are taken from that album. Our first number, by silver soprano Dr. Marcel Thomas, captures the very essence of Norman Manley's spirit of courage and leadership. The Lord is my light. Who shall I fear? Dr. Thomas? We want to especially thank Dr. Thomas for her rousing contribution. Norman Manley, from his early days as a student of JC, Jamaica College, he displayed the courage to stand up against enormous odds and perfectly confident of victory, his ability to overcome. He showed even then a deep passion for justice and an empathy for the oppressed. This is what those who knew him had to say.
From his days at Jamaica College, he earned the reputation of one who abhorred bullying. And after a few sessions, when the bullies tried to attack him, he prepared himself and put them all to flight.
He still holds a record at Jamaica College. He's the only boy to have been reported by all 7 masters in one day to the headmaster for infringement of the school's rules. What turns him around is the death of his mother, and somehow consciousness of all she had done. He decided to really take a hold of himself. The headmaster was very surprised when Norman Manley announced that he would like to try for the Rhodes Scholarship. The headmaster reminded him that it needed both recommendation as to academic performance as well as character, and on neither count Manley qualified. Fortunately, R.M.O was the deputy principal, a friend of the family, who took him under his wing. By that time, his aunts are all off to England, and he's the only member of the family he knows in Jamaica. Holidays he stays at Jamaica College, he has nowhere to go. But in the last 3 years at Jamaica College, he turns himself around. He captains every team. At Jamaica College, under his leadership, wins the championships, win the Sunlight Cup, win the Manning Cup, win the Oliver Sheep. And then he wins the Rhodes Scholarship.
Manley's entire adult life resonated with that fearless boldness that he shared with his cousin, Sir Alexander Bustamante, also a national hero and similarly recognized as a father of independent Jamaica. With Norman, however, that fierce boldness manifested itself as a deep inner resolve and a composed quietude. In contrast to Sir Alex, who could be quite daring and demonstrative, to say the least. Both were members of the church, Methodist and Catholic respectively, and what both had in common was a kind of faith that translated itself from mere religious doctrine to effective life praxis. Young Jimmy Tucker sang in 1958 about this kind of tenacious faith as a boy soprano then of some 11 years old. Now, the young Jaleel Blake of Jimmy's old alma mater Calabar takes us back to these foundational principles of successful living. Have faith. Jaleel? Thank you, Jaleel. Norman Manley clearly had a winning spirit, the spirit of a leader. And from his schoolboy days at JC, he used this gift to support, but not to dominate. Whether he was lawyer or leader or legislator, he was dedicated to the service of others, regardless of social standing or educational attainment or political persuasion. The epitome of servant leadership, he found the meaning of his life in putting his substantial gifts in the service of the people of Jamaica. Jimmy Tucker grasped this in putting together material for his 1993 album. And he included this very popular song at the time. I call it the Song of the Good Neighbor. Here to sing this practical love anthem in her own inimical style, Mrs. Velia Ann Carrington Espute sings, If I Can Help Somebody.
If I can help somebody as I pass along, if I can share somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody that he's traveling wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. Then my living shall not be in if I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living shall not be in vain. If I can do my duty as a Christian ought, if I can bring back beauty to a world wrong, if I can spread love's message as the master, oh, as he taught, then my living shall not be in vain.
This characteristic focus of modeling the Good Shepherd in servant leadership was the rationale for Norman Manley's favorite hymn, and which, in keeping with good old Jamaican politicking, was mixed in with all of the religious fervor that it invoked into his political campaigns. Norman Manley was inveigling all of his followers to join him in seeking and saving the lost. Of course, the lost were those strayed sheep with intentions to vote for the other party. Through all the many nooks and crannies and hilltops and ravines of Jamaica's very much variegated landscape, one could hear the voice of the Good Shepherd, N.W. Manley, seeking that last vote from some backslidden former PNP. You could tell that it was a PNP rally whenever you heard this song. Wait, I can hear it now.
There were 99 that safely lay in the shelter of the fort, but one was out on the hills away, far off from the gates of gold. Away on the mountains, wild and bare, away from the mountains, wild and bare, away from danger, shepherds care. Lord, thou hast here the 99. Are they not enough for thee? But the shepherds made answer, this sheep of mine has wandered away from me. And although the road may be rocky and steep, I go to the desert to find my sheep. I go to the desert to find my sheep.
It was O.T. Fairclough who persuaded Norman Manley to take leadership of the PNP. Norman Manley himself was always reluctant to power. He had to be convinced that he was the best person to lead the march towards self-government. And that was, of course, the original platform of the PNP. But it was in 1939 that Manley really came to the fore of national attention in the Frome riots. And since there are not that many people around still to tell the tale, maybe he's the best person to tell us himself. Norman Manley speaks.
When the waterfront went out on strike, the police interfered in a tactless way. Bustamante intervened in a tactful way from his point of view, and that set off a chain reaction, exactly like an atomic bomb. In 4 hours it spread into every corner. Every single institution went on strike. Every factory, every enterprise. Shops were closed, tramcars stopped running. In thousands of cases, domestic servants stopped cleaning the pots and pans and said, I've gone on strike too. The government, in a panic, on the second day, arrested Bustamante, and I intervened that night by offering myself as a representative of all striking groups anywhere in Jamaica. I persuaded the governor to set up a commission to inquire into all grievances by all groups on strike and to recommend how the grievances should be dealt with and to try and negotiate wages for everybody. Well, when I was negotiating for the waterfront workers, they made it quite clear that they felt that Buster should be released before they would accept any settlement. And I told them that I agreed with them, because I thought his arrest in the circumstances was entirely unjustified. 3 applications were made for bail and refused. I think largely on the direction of government, who were terrified as to what would happen if he was let out. And a time came when we succeeded in getting everything that the waterfront workers wanted as a condition of their returning to work. And I was asked by the commission if it wouldn't be a good thing to announce it. And to that I replied, no, not at all. The workers are not going to accept it because Bustamante is still locked up. I told the commission that I had been asking the governor for 3 days, twice a day, to let him out, and warning him that we'd been for bad trouble. And on the final day, the final Friday, I attended at King's House with the whole of the commission, and all the top-ranking civil servants and told them quite frankly that I would wash my hands of all responsibility for Kingston if they did not let Bustamante out, and that in my judgment it was likely that the town would be burned down on Sunday. I was requested to go and see him, and I did. I saw him at 10 o'clock in the general penitentiary, and after seeing him, we agreed on what was needed to restore peace, and I prevailed upon his lawyers. I actually took Smith out of bed at 1 o'clock in the morning to renew an application before a high court judge for bail, on the understanding that I would appear and give evidence that in my judgment the safety of Kingston would be enhanced and in no way hurt by the release of Bustamante on bail. And I had an assurance from the governor that he would direct the judge that Bustamante was to get bail if I gave that evidence. And I gave that evidence, and he got bail. And I went to the prison myself to escort him out. And consequent on all those things, we were able, Bustamante and I, to work together with that commission from one end of Jamaica to the other, pacifying striking groups, representing striking groups, acting in every way possible to bring something positively good out of the chaos that prevailed. And it can be said that at the end of 3 months, the average wages for all Jamaica had been increased 20%. And I think it must be almost unique in history that an event of that sort has resulted in positive good for the masses.
And so it was that both N.W. and his cousin, Sir Alex, both together, even though perennially at odds, they blazed a trail of leadership, culminating in the British finally yielding to the demand of the Jamaican people for universal adult suffrage first in 1944 and then political independence in 1962. The Jamaican people were turning a new chapter of their history. Workers who had been exploited with impunity for centuries, first as slaves, then as serfs, then as cheap labor, had finally scored an important victory in the long uphill battle of resistance. They were putting themselves into position to take over the Babylon of their captivity and to finally make it their own. They had begun to own their story and sing their own song. One of the first of these new songs of pride of ownership and acceptance of the wheels of fate was a recognition that after all this unspeakable exploitation and abuse for centuries, this land, this Jamaican land, was the land of our birth, where our ancestors are buried, where blood, sweat, and tears have been spilt and commingled with the soil. This land rightfully belonged to the people who had lived and worked and died in it. Many of the former colonial masters hardly even bothered to visit the source of the wealth that they had so violently extracted from both land and people for centuries. Words could hardly express the feelings pulsating through those very workers in August 1962. Because they were witnessing the symbol of their subjugation, that Union Jack, finally lowered from its lofty place. And in its place was raised some brand new, shiny new colors of black and green and gold. The closest we can come to describe that moment is probably captured in this now famous song. Lieutenant Commander John McFarlane comes to sing for us, Jamaica, Arise.
The trumpet has sounded, my country all. So awake from your slumber and answer the call. The torch has been lighted, the dawn is at hand. Who joins in the fight for his own native land? Land of my birth, I pledge to be loyal and faithful to thee. The tone may be heavy, the campaign long. The road will be weak, the barriers are strong. Oh, progress may falter, our energies wane, but steadfast in spirit, our goals we will gain. Man of my birth, I pledge to be loyal and faithful to thee. In faithful assurance that God will look down and give us His blessings, our efforts to crown. Let us all be united to build by His grace a more Jamaica, a loftier race. Land of my birth, I pledge to be loyal and faithful to thee.
But August 6th, 1962, was a day of unspeakable jubilation for Jamaica. But also, it was a day of mixed emotions for Norman Washington Manley. It was never his dream that Jamaica should sail alone into the sea of national independence. He had envisioned a federated Caribbean sailing together. His granddaughter Rachel remembers those times.
His great gift was taking from his own head a vision of what nationhood would mean and would be, and putting it into the minds of the Jamaican people. And I say this because I remember during the time of Federation, when they were going up and down the islands, they sent me to boarding school, to keep me safe somewhere. And I remember he would take out the map, the hurricane map, and he would show me the islands and he'd make me pronounce them. And he made this into the most grand adventure. All these sisters and brothers we were joining with on this journey, and we were all subterraneanly connected to each other. In the dining room, we had a huge dining table. So all the federal leaders at the time of Federation would gather around the table for these meetings, Brantley Adams and Byrd and Eric Williams. And Eric and Adams didn't really like each other. Anyway, they were sitting together this day, and I went under the table and I tied the shoelaces together of Mr. Adams and Mr. Williams. And then quietly crept back out. So they couldn't get apart. And my grandfather just loved it. I remember he just put out his hands and he hugged me. Afterwards, he said, "Oh, that was wonderful to see them try and get away from each other." Federation meant so much to him. And I remember the night, we had wonderful victories like 1955 election night. But it's funny, everybody looked joyous, but my grandfather always looked thoughtful. He always thought about the implications. He didn't see power as something to celebrate. He realized he had a job to do. But the night of the federal election, I always remember the federal flag was folded on the dining table, and my grandfather always used to sit at the dining table because the rediffusion was in that room, and we used to hear the results on the rediffusion set from RJR. And as it became clear that he had taken a pounding, I came in and I didn't understand the implications, but I remember he came and he said, "Come here, Pi," and he used to call me Pi R squared, which was the sum of his love for me. that was everlasting, he said. And he pulled me over to him and he undid the flag, this federal flag, the sun and the waves, this beautiful aqua and orange flag. And he put it around me and he drew me to him. And he just said to me softly, never forget this flag. And I never have. I think it's the only thing I believe in Caribbean politics, a real federation.
He comes along, brave and strong, through all rocky strand. One Jamaican gentleman, a great statesman is he, and he scored as he bore this throughout the land. To enjoy prosperity, we must federate and be. Here comes a Norman Manley, a level-headed man of state, who took the fight to take the right quite manfully of Jamaica's economic fate. From the fact of his federal conception, he's now the father of the newborn nation. Here comes a Norman Manley, a level-headed man of the state. Make me live long and give of his very best. This way to anticipate, he'll outlive the rest. And may we thankful be for what we are blessed. Norman Manley's cabinet, sons we'll ever hold most dear. Here comes a Norman Manley, a level-headed man of the state, who took the fight to take the right quite manfully, or Jamaica's economic fate. From the fact of his federal conception, he's the father of the newborn nation. Here comes a Norman Manley, a level-headed man of the state.
Commander McFarlane accurately captures the excitement of those times. The dream of federation, which had been within a hand's grasp, had evaporated like mist. There were also many in the island who recognized the genius of Manley's vision and shared in his disappointment. In the spirit of the times, one J. Ormsby penned a lament that Mr. Tucker included in his album, and Lieutenant Commander John McFarlane will now give us his own very powerful rendition.
Do we not know yieldeth not to morbid mood, but bravely worketh on. But love will grow, and the growing learn thou we will yet be strong. Where feebless hands so tiny seeds, and often uproot and crush the weeds, their clever hearts will beat, and every bramble pruned away lets in the light of God's own day, the light that will Godspeed our workers, may they grow in numbers day by day. Strength and hopefulness and the heart to devote and learn to bless we are when the first party born. Of this our league, our patriot band, which seeks the soul of our dear land, and fears not outward form.
Norman Manley's political career, fraught as it was with highs and lows, was extremely productive for the people of Jamaica. The list is too long to mention Norman Manley's many achievements, but it came at great personal cost. He learned to keep pace with his vision and manage the constant stress of leadership. He found balance by escaping into the Blue Mountain Refuge, Ormsby, whenever the heat of the city plains was too much to bear. There, in the relative solitude of nature, he found rest for his spirit. Clyde Hart captured the spirit of this exquisite solace, an ode to the Blue Mountains, where Jamaica, land of my birth, is stretched out like a canvas before you. This is now captured for us by the National Chorale of Jamaica, singing O'er Our Blue Mountains, led by Mr. Winston Ewart.